All right, well, we're now a couple minutes past the hour. Welcome everyone again to Cloud Options for Finance Leaders. We have two of JMT's best consultants on the call, Andy Harleman, our Director of Sales, and Brendan Sohan. Brendan, Andy, you guys take it away.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for JMT's first ever head-to-head comparison webinar on cloud options for MIP. Today we'll be discussing a very hot topic, which tends to be a cross-departmental topic, and that would be migrating your MIP system to the cloud. Migrating has been a potential option for many of you for a bunch of years now, but as technologies progress, strategic initiatives change, leadership changes, and professional endorsements occur, we find ourselves here at JMT in a position where more and more of our clients are asking about jumping to the cloud seemingly on a daily basis. And after brief consideration, Andy and I thought, hey, we should do a webinar on cloud offerings. At JMT, we work primarily with the accounting folks using our ERP systems, but we also work a lot with the HR folks as well. Interesting to me, at least, is the HR and HCM, which stands for Human Capital Management. Those offerings tend to be the fastest adopters of cloud-based technology, where accounting, finance, and ERP tends to be one of the slower groups to adopt this huge shift. We will not be discussing HR or HCM, Human Capital Management related products in the webinar today, but we do offer products and services in that area, both within MIP and external to MIP. My name is Brendan Sohan. I am the Client Sales Manager here at JMT. Many of you on the line probably know me. You've spoken with me in the past, or you've at least heard from me. I've been with JMT for about 7 years now and work exclusively with the existing clients using MIP. Throughout my tenure here, I've worked with all sorts and sizes of MIP clients looking to migrate to the cloud, from a one-user system for an organization that has about $1.2 million in the annual operating budget, all the way up to a 47 and I think 55 user MIP system with annual operating budgets exceeding $200 million, and of course everywhere in between. On the line with me today is Andy Harleman, JMT's Director of Sales. Andy's been with JMT for 10 or 11 years now. In his early career here at JMT, I would say Andy focused mostly on MIP systems for net new clients, meaning clients that are migrating off a different platform like QuickBooks or Blackbaud and wanting to move on to MIP. But nowadays, and this change didn't happen overnight, but Andy finds himself working primarily with Intact clients, both net new to JMT and existing. Many of you on the line may even know Andy, as he could have worked with you while evaluating your organization's desire to implement MIP through all the way to the purchase of your MIP system. And he'll be jumping in here in just a little bit to discuss some more advanced cloud migration options after I reach my quota of allotted talk time. So enough about Andy and I, we're boring. Let's talk about you for a minute, our distinguished guests, the women and men of the hour. Hopefully you're currently using MIP. If not, full disclosure, much of this presentation today will be focused around MIP, the users and their cloud options. So you might already have your MIP system in the cloud some way. Maybe you're currently using the Abila private cloud, or maybe you're using a third-party cloud or hosted service. That's okay. The important part is that you're currently an MIP user. I'm also hoping that you are a finance user or administrator of some sort on MIP. So this falls in line a little bit with the whole cross-departmental aspect of migrating to the cloud. This isn't like making the decision to purchase the, electronic funds transfer module anymore, where it just simply affects the finance staff. A lot of the change like this will also have an effect on your IT and that staff. So the three most common reasons to think cloud. These top three reasons might not appear on any list you've seen before, but to me, sitting in my position, managing the accounts and relationships between JMT and the many MIP clients we have, I'm able to group most of you into three basic groups. So the first group, this is typically our most common group, those that have a strategic and organizational goal to adopt cloud technologies. Perhaps you've started and executed on some of this already, maybe with timekeeping or payroll or maybe expense management. And now you're onto the project of migrating your ERP or MIP system into the cloud. This group is amicably referred to as our forward thinkers. I would say probably 45% of our cloud migrations come from this group. Group number 2, the something is about to happen group. This group also makes up about 45% of our cloud migrations. And what I mean by something is about to happen is maybe your server is approaching the end of its life cycle. Maybe your support plan is about to expire, or maybe you're running a version of an operating system that will no longer be supported. At JMT, we saw a lot of this with the whole thing with Windows XP last year or the year before. Perhaps your organization's brain trust of an IT person is leaving the organization, and you want to make a change that will make the next person's job a bit easier. Something is about to happen. And the last group, something did happen. This tends to be about 5 to 10% maybe of our MIP cloud migrations. Typically, we find in this group, if they had a server fail, their database crashed, or their existing cloud service is inadequate or maybe too expensive, expertise might not be there from the existing cloud service. Unfortunately, we see enough of this that it's a cause for concern here. So we at JMT, we never want our clients to be in such a reactionary position. Hence, one of the reasons for JMT putting on this informational webinar on cloud hosting options for MIP users today. Andy and I get asked this question a lot. Why cloud? So before we jump into all the different offerings available to you as MIP clients, I figured it might be worthwhile to touch on a few of our top reasons. One of the biggest from my perspective is the automatic software updates. The beauty of cloud computing is that the servers are off-premise and out of sight and out of your hair. Suppliers take care of the servers and they roll out the regular software updates for you. And that includes security updates. So you don't have to worry about wasting time maintaining the server and system yourself. This leaves you free to focus on other things like growing your nonprofit. Capital expenditure free, I like this one a lot. Cloud computing cuts the high costs of hardware, so you simply pay as you go and enjoy a subscription-based model that's kind to your cash flow. Add to that the ease of setup and management, and suddenly your scary, hairy IT project becomes a lot friendlier looking. Work from anywhere. We really live and breathe this here at JMT because we are a cloud company. With cloud computing, if you've gotten an internet connection, you can be at work. And with the more serious cloud services offering mobile apps, you're not restricted by which device you've got on hand. The result? Organizations can be more flexible working and giving work perks to employees so that they can enjoy the work-life balance that suits them without productivity taking a hit. One study reported that 42% of workers would swap a portion of their pay for the ability to telecommute. On average, they'd be willing to take about a 6% pay cut. And to give you a real-life example of this, Andy and I are not working in the same office. We're not even in the same state, and we collaborated on this webinar presentation together in real time. He's in St. Louis, I'm in New York. Security. Lost laptops are a billion-dollar business problem. And that's great for companies like CDW and Best Buy and Amazon, but not for the organization that actually loses that hardware. And what ends up being a potentially even greater loss than the expensive piece of hardware is also the loss of the sensitive data inside of it. Cloud computing gives you greater security when this happens because your data is stored in the cloud. You can access it no matter what happens to your machine, and you can even remotely wipe data from lost laptops so it doesn't get into the wrong hands. I think if I know Andy, and I've known him for quite a while, he's going to be talking about the security aspect a little more in the presentation a bit later. And lastly, disaster recovery. Organizations of all sizes should be investing in robust disaster recovery, but for smaller organizations that lack the required cash flow and expertise, this is often more of an ideal rather than a reality. Now, cloud is helping more organizations buck that trend. So according to Aberdeen Group, small businesses are twice as likely as larger companies to have implemented cloud-based backup and recovery solutions that save time, avoid large upfront investments, and they also roll up the third-party expertise as part of the deal. Now, assuming you're using MIP and you find yourself in one of the three aforementioned groups, rest assured, we have options for you. These, of course, are not the only options available to you, but these are definitely the preferred and industry-leading solutions. The first option really comes with two offerings. Those offerings come from the manufacturer of your MIP system, Abila. The first we're going to be talking about is the MIP Abila Private Cloud, and the second one we'll be discussing is what's called MIP Advanced. And we'll get into the specifics and differences between those two offerings in just a little bit. The next option to get your MIP system into the cloud is private cloud hosting by a partner of JMT's called NPT, or Nonprofit Technologies. If any of you have been to our annual Innovate conference, you'll probably have had the opportunity to meet and speak with Kevin Massey, NPT, or Nonprofit Technologies founder. JMT and NPT have been partners for quite a long time, and our clients, which end up migrating to NPT's cloud, tend to have nothing but great things to say about his service. Lastly, assuming we've exhausted all of our other options, or you're in somewhat of a different mindset, we have the ERP migration option. JMT has been an Intact partner for about 7 years, and in that time, we've seen exponential growth from this side of the business. Every year, JMT ends up adding more and more Intact clients to our client portfolio, and Andy is going to be getting into the Intact option in just a little while. Okay, Brendan, I have 4 viable, strong cloud options to choose from, but are they all equal? Does it matter which one I choose? Great question, inner voice. I thought you'd never ask. Let's dive in and take a closer look at each offering and when it makes sense to make the jump to each. Jumping right into our first set of options, the first two are directly from the manufacturer of MIP software, Abila. They're somewhat similar to one another, but there are definitely some pretty interesting differences. So let's start with the easiest and most basic to explain, MIP or Abila Private Cloud. The Abila or MIP Private Cloud option is our first method by which we're going to be able to get our beloved MIP systems into the cloud. Aside from the ideals and demographic statistics you see cited on the PowerPoint, it's important to talk about what the private cloud actually is. In short, Abila will take your database, your MIP system, your user rights and preferences, and they'll migrate all of that into their own multi-tenant environment hosted by Rackspace. First, let's talk about what exactly multi-tenant and single-tenant architecture is. As the name suggests, multi-tenant software as a service, or SaaS, is an architecture where multiple companies share the same instance to store their data. This instance is typically divided or partitioned to prevent the companies from accessing each other's information. Think of this like a high-rise building where the floor plans are generally set, but minor cosmetic changes can be made to the individual units. It's important to note that as of right now, Abila Private Cloud cannot accommodate a few things. First, if you're using MIP's scheduler module, Abila Private Cloud for MIP cannot fully support the actual scheduling of the reports to be sent out. It can, however, still support the report binding side of that module. Secondly, Private Cloud cannot fully support all of the micro functionality. So if you're using advanced functions like HTML approval or system alerts, then Abila Private Cloud most likely will not be a good fit for you. Again, think of Abila Private Cloud as an entry-level step. It's been around for about 6 years now, but its popularity has tailed off significantly since the inception of MIP Advanced. Great segue. Speaking of MIP Advanced, that's our next cloud offering to discuss. One can think of MIP Advanced similar to the way that we think about Abila Private Cloud with a bit more stuff. For instance, it's the same great MIP system you're used to using, nothing really changes there, but with Advanced, we get the addition of dashboards and cache management. Both MIP Advanced and Abila Private Cloud guarantee 99.99% uptime and have remarkably high historical availability ratings. I don't think I've I can't think of an outage that they've had for any period of time. But given the needs of an organization that would want to roll out dashboarding to both finance and non-finance related staff, I think bumping up the annual operating budget threshold and the user sweet spot you'll see on there, I think that's appropriate. Again, though, Advance being so similar to private cloud in that it's built in a multi-tenant environment and lends itself to the less nuanced and less sophisticated organizations, there are some limitations. And those limitations are the same as Abila Private Cloud. Advance, like private cloud, cannot accommodate micro HTML approval or system alerts. It cannot fully support the scheduler module. And if you're using one of Team NFP's Teammate products like Payroll Teammate or Check Clearing Teammate, just know that those are not supported either. One of the main differences between Advance and private cloud, in addition to the super cool dashboards, is the inclusion of API. API stands for Application Program Interface. And in short, it means that there is a two-channel bidirectional or bilateral integration of information flowing from one application to the other and vice versa. Currently, MIP Advance comes with the API integration right out of the box, but if you're leaning toward private cloud, API will cost you an additional roughly $500 per year. There are about 12 active API partners working with MIP and Abila right now, most notably as they're also partners of JMT, Nexonia, Avid Exchange, and ACOM all have fully built APIs ready for use with MIP. So I just wanted to take a moment to show you what you get in Advance in terms of dashboards. This is different and kind of a departure from what you'd get with Abila Private Cloud and MIP in general. This is the current list of dashboards, and they can be deployed with role-based permissions so that certain employees aren't seeing more than they should. And one of the cool things about cloud-based technology is that it has the ability to turn on a dime. So these are the dashboards that are out right now, but with MIP Advance getting the lion's share of research and development dollars over at Abila, this list will end up growing rather quickly as the version updates come out. Here's a little sample of one of the MIP Advanced dashboards. This one is a screenshot off of a desktop browser, but MIP Advanced is fully supported and compatible with mobile devices. So your on-the-go type executive staff can see their financial statistics at a glance while on the road. So these dashboards are always a great option for CFOs who don't typically play around transactionally in MIP. They're great for executive directors and board members who want a quick snapshot and other non-finance related staff who need quick, limited access. They say that scientific research has been done around PowerPoint presentations and that the presentations with pictures of puppies and kittens have noticeably higher levels of audience engagement, and they leave audience members with lower levels of stress. Unfortunately, I don't have a kitten or a puppy, but I do have a 4.5-month-old. His name's Colin. On to our next option. Switching gears quite a bit brings us to NPT's private cloud service. Migrating to NPT's private cloud offers MIP users the most robust experience with the least amount of disruption to the normal ways in which the organization operates. That's embarrassing. I don't know how to mute that. We've been partnering with NPT for many years now, much longer than I've been here at JMT, and I joined in 2010. So NPT, in fact, has been offering MIP clients a way to get their MIP systems into the cloud since 2003. Let that sink in for a second. 2003. Abila only started offering MIP in the cloud, albeit in a multi-tenant cloud, since 2011. I'll repeat it because it bears repeating. NPT has been offering this since 2003. That's an 8-year difference. As such, NPT has amassed 450 different or unique organizations using their private cloud service. That equates to about 6,000 individual users, and JMT has about 122 clients leveraging the ease and efficiency of NPT's private cloud offering. The biggest thing to keep in mind here with NPT's private cloud is that it's super flexible. It can accommodate those one concurrent user shops, and we have plenty of those running NPT Cloud. But we also have MIP clients using NPT's Cloud that have 47 and again 55 concurrent MIP user systems. As you can probably imagine, those are pretty robust and demanding and well-connected MIP systems in the upper range of 47 and 55 concurrent users. Considering NPT doesn't have any functionality restrictions with what it can and cannot do, it tends to be a great fit for those MIP systems that have add-on or ancillary applications attached to them. AKA, there's no restrictions or limitations with what NPT can and cannot do with Microy, DrillPoint, and all native MIP modules like Scheduler and the Team NFP products, those teammate products, and they can do them all. And so for purposes of completely defining the nomenclature from before, a single tenant or hosted software as a service is an architecture where each company has their own instance of the software application and the supporting infrastructure. Think of it like a neighborhood community rather than a high-rise, where that development developed by the same architect and engineer, where each household has the ability to change and customize their property as desired. You don't really get that in the high-rise type community, but by having a single hosted instance, the purchaser can tweak and customize the software to meet their needs. We see a lot of this going on with folks running NPT. So what happens when you want to migrate to NPT's cloud? Well, they take your existing on-premise MIP system, extract its SQL database, the user permissions and profiles and preferences, and then NPT, those folks painlessly upload all that onto a server that they've created for you. You would then be able to sign into MIP using a new MIP desktop icon or by going to a web URL should you be working from home or away from the office. One of the questions that comes up a lot is around backups. Auditors love this question. NPT offers 60 days of daily backups, 24 months of monthly backups, 7 years of annual backups, and they're all available off-site. Abila Private Cloud and Advanced only offer 28 days of backups online. The offsite backups are going to cost a little more with Advanced and Private Cloud. But one of the other areas we get a lot of questions around is support. Okay, you're a cloud company now. Plenty of folks are working from home more. They have a lot of organizations similar to JMT have satellite offices in different time zones and employees all throughout the country. We can't let, it would not be right to leave them in the dust. So that's why NPT offers 24/7 support by phone and email. That is additional. But lastly, I think this is it's a rather important point. It's the multi-factor authentication. This service, similar to what you'd get with online banking, is offered by NPT, but it is not offered by the Abila hosting or cloud services. It does come at an additional cost with NPT, but it's nominal if you're one of the organizations that needs multi-factor authentication. In short, think of NPT's private cloud service like your current MIP system, just deployed a little differently with some nice add-on bells and whistles. One of the major reasons NPT continues to be so successful in this space is its single tenant environment architecture. This allows clients to host not just MIP with NPT, but they can also host the entire Abila suite and some Sage products as well, like FR50 and the fixed assets FAS 100. We have a few clients that are doing all three of those. And one I think is even hosting Timberline along with FR50, FAS 100, and MIP. And so, of course, migrating to NPT Cloud, they'll be able to continue to interface all of those products with one another the way they're currently doing it, or the way you're probably currently doing it. So let's say you're watching this webinar and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, this is all well and good, and a lot of this will help my organization in some areas, but I'm looking for a bit more. I'm looking for a cloud-based solution that can also make my workflows easier to use, more efficient. I'm looking for a system that can seamlessly connect with not just my purchasing system, but also our development team's fundraising application and our ADP payroll system. All of these integrations, while in the cloud with MIP, are still kind of rigid and manual. what else could you possibly have to offer? At this time, I think I heard him take himself off mute. I would like to introduce my counterpart here at JMT, Andy Harleman. Andy is JMT's Director of Sales and has much experience on both sides of the aisle in terms of cloud, not cloud, and what we call here partly cloudy options. As previously mentioned, Andy works primarily with our new Intact clients. It's worth explaining how Intact got its name before I hand things over to Andy. The name is a combination of two words. If you look at the spelling, it reads INTACCT. Back in 1999, when Intact was founded, I guess they were feeling kind of frisky around the steering committee when they had to come up with a name for the company, but it's short for Internet Accounting. So it's a compound word that is not a real word. But yes, Intact is a completely cloud or web-based application. No servers, no software. It's all HTTPS-based architecture for the end users. So without any further delay, Andy Harleman.
Thank you, Brendan. Appreciate it very much. And could you please load the picture of my 4-month-old? Oh, wait a minute. Don't have one. But thank you very much, Brendan. I do appreciate it. I would like to start by telling a little bit of a story, tying back to what JMT is really all about. As all of you know, as our clients, we were founded by Jacqueline M. Tizo back 26 years ago. She was herself a finance person for a nonprofit or several nonprofits in the New York City area, and went out on her own and started this firm. And over the years, we've been value-added resellers with multiple products. We've done all kinds of other things, but at the heart of everything that we do at JMT is first and foremost our commitment to the nonprofit sector. We only work with nonprofits, but we never wanted to be a firm that is basically just an extension of a software publisher. So while we have great partnerships with Abilla and Intact and other tools, first and foremost, we see it as we are JMT. We choose to partner with whomever we want to partner with, and we base that on our knowledge of the nonprofit space. So over the years, there have been times when software tools have kind of fallen out of favor with JMT, and we've dumped those relationships. There was one in particular that we used to work with. It was clear that they were not investing in their product. It was clear that they had ownership and financial stability problems. And on top of that, their tool, while powerful, was quite the opposite of user-friendly. And so JMT severed our relationship with that particular software company. But I tell you that story just to emphasize that we are always vetting all the products that are in the marketplace. And we are choosing to have partnerships and relationships with the firms that best serve the nonprofit space. And so about, as Brendan said, 7 years ago, and actually going back further than that, 8 or 9 years ago, our CEO, Jackie, was looking at the world around her, and she said to herself, I think the cloud is where it's going. And at that time, people would argue with her, and they would say, oh, no one's going to put their finances in the cloud. And she said, no, I think it's coming. She had lots of, I think she had a crystal ball. That must have been what she had. No, she had obviously her facts and figures and her opinions about where the world was headed, and based on a lot of advice from other people as well. But she said, no, I've got to have a cloud offering as well. At that time, MIP was only an on-premise option. We were the #1 MIP partner of all time, and we're quite happy. We were getting lots of accolades. You could look us up at the time and the listings of the top value-added resellers in the country and always find JMT listed. And we could have just sat back and enjoyed that, but we saw that the world around us was changing. And I'm very thankful as an employee of this company that I work for a person who kind of saw that and was a little bit bold in saying that she needed to become a partner with a true native cloud-based application. And so she did some searching and ultimately landed on Intact. And again, at that time, Jackie used to do seminars all over the country, lunch seminars. I joined her on a few. And people would be almost hostile, arguing, oh no, finances are never going to be in the cloud. But even then, there was a statistic that I thought was really interesting, which was the #1 reason why organizations and companies don't put their finances in the cloud is concerns about security. But interestingly, again, even at that time, the #2 reason why organizations who did go to the cloud say that they made that move was superior security. So what that told us was once people looked under the hood a little bit and started doing some research on the actual security, that it would tell them that actually cloud was much more secure than what you could have with an on-premise. And I think that's really at the heart of what we're talking about here on this webinar, whether you go with the private cloud with Abilla or NPT, or even if you migrated to a tool like Intacct, what we're talking about are things like superiority of security. The bottom line is one nonprofit can never possibly afford the level of security that can be realized when you have hundreds or thousands of organizations combining subscriptions together and pooling resources to have tools like NPT or server farms and things like that you get with tools like Intacct. So it is, in addition to just security, there are other things as well, which I'm going to go through. But that really is at the heart of what we're talking about here today, is the idea of the cloud is truly superior in terms of security. There's a horror story from a local nonprofit here. As Brendan mentioned, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. There was a nonprofit a few years back, fairly well known here in St. Louis. A creek behind their building flooded for the first time ever. They found out later due to a giant Walmart Lowe's superstore that was built, and the pavement caused all the water to run off in a way it never had before. And so the creek backed up for the first time in its history and flooded their server room. And they were scrambling to save their financial data that was on a server in their server room. And that's just one example, and we've all heard many like that. With the cloud, you just don't have to worry about things like that. So what Intacct is it is truly native to the cloud. It was born in the cloud, and it lives only in the cloud. You have only one option with Intacct, and that is to access it through a browser. It is browser neutral. You can use any browser you want to, but it does not, unlike MIP, which does still have an on-premise option, Intacct does not. It is truly software as a service, or SaaS, as Brendan said. It is very scalable. What we find with Intacct is that it does work across the spectrum. Frankly, we're seeing it utilized more by the larger organizations. And by larger, I mean, excess of 15, 20 million in annual operating revenue at times. We have some organizations that are in excess of $100 million that are clients on Intacct. On the other hand, this year, we've had several 1 and 2 user systems from Intacct, the new clients that have come on board with 1 and 2 users. So it's not necessarily made only for larger organizations. I think that a lot of that may have something to do with the price, and the subscription cost just tends to be a little bit more prohibitive for the smaller organizations. Intacct has very powerful dashboards, and I'm going to show you a screenshot of it in just a minute. And that's one of the things that you'll find that's very interesting about it. It also incorporates something, statistical accounts. And we are seeing more and more these days, organizations are not just talking about debits and credits and dollars and cents anymore. Rows and columns with numbers on them are important, and many people in this call are probably accountants, and don't worry, we're never going to move away from rows and columns and numbers and debits and credits. But truly, at the end of the day, your job as a nonprofit finance person is to tell the story of your organization and how it relates to the dollars, and how you serve your community via statistical accounts. So for example, a homeless shelter wants to be able to say, hey, we served this many people this year, and for every dollar raised, it allows us to put X number of meals on the table, or something like that. Many times, I mean, those stories have already been told for years with most nonprofits, but many times what it involves is finance takes their piece of it in the form of rows and columns and black and white numbers, and dumps it out. And other people in other parts of the organization may have the statistics on the number of people served or whatever it might be, and somebody manually pieces it all together and maybe even pays money to have it published real professionally for your annual report. Tools like Intacct now incorporate statistical accounts and therefore allow you to do computations between non-financial metrics and financial, which is something that is ultimately enabled by its powerful technology platform that it is built on. Also, and I don't want to get too techie here, and I actually am not even really capable of getting too techie, but bottom line is, because of the programming language that Intacct is written in, it's very flexible and customizable in a way that MIP certainly is not, and most most what they call legacy tools that are written like in a Microsoft SQL database can't allow you to do things like, simple example, if you want to move the menu bar around on the top of your screen where it says File, Edit, Drop Down, whatever, in Intacct, you can literally move that left to right wherever you want to put it. You can even delete and hide things that you don't want to see. With security, if you lock a user out of ever doing an AP check, they won't see a grayed out AP check menu item. They simply won't see the menu item. So it's much more flexible and gives every user a real personalized feeling. They see the system in the way that matters to how they do their job on a daily basis. It also includes built-in tools like purchasing and employee expense and time management. It really empowers organizations to not have everything sort of centralized and siloed, and allows finance people to roll functionality out to others outside of finance in a way that we're seeing. You could certainly do that with tools like MIP when you add tools like Micro and everything else, but that is kind of just built right into Intacct. It has a very open platform, and again, this is sort of techie, but what it really means is it plays very nicely with others, and you can integrate it with anything. Intacct's whole approach to the world is to do one thing: core financials. And instead of trying to do payroll better than ADP or CRM better than Salesforce, they partner with companies like that and have integrations built. So it's very easy to integrate with a tool like Intacct that is native cloud. With a private cloud, you sometimes run into issues kind of getting in and out of the private cloud and having other tools connect. I'll be very candid and tell you one story. We are a partner with a tool called Adaptive Insights, which is a cloud-based budgeting, planning, advanced, forecasting, planning, modeling tool that they actually can't integrate across the Abila private cloud, but they can integrate with an on-premise version in your own server closet, because the private cloud sometimes brings up barriers that are difficult for other tools to integrate with. With a tool like Intacct, it's got a very open platform, and so integration is much easier. The other thing that really matters to the end user with a tool like this is that because it is a multi-tenant system and you're not having to upgrade or send out, in the old days, they used to literally send floppy disks to you in the mail that you would upgrade whenever the new ones came out. They can literally roll out major releases on an incredibly frequent basis, 4 times a year. We've been in this business for a long time, and we used to think MIP was ahead of the curve because they were at like 12 months. Once a year, they would have major upgrades. And there were competitors of theirs that were 15 or 18 months. But Intacct is doing every 3 months. And it's because they can very easily, with their technology platform, roll it out. And it happens overnight, typically on a Friday at like 3 o'clock in the morning, when the fewest number of people have any likelihood of being in the tool. Turns off for like 1 minute, and then it turns back on, and the new release is there. It's very similar to if you use LinkedIn or Facebook or any other cloud-based tool like that, how sometimes you just log in one day and it looks a little different and there's a new version. That's what happens. Right now, JMT currently has about 60 Intacct customers. And so, sometimes we have our clients that are on MIP that will come to us and say, we're not happy with MIP anymore. We think we're outgrowing it. We think we'd like to try some other things. And they've come to us about going over to Intacct. And then we've had other clients, many new clients that have come to join us because they were just out there on some other tool and they heard about JMT's partnership with Intacct and worked with us that way. So, again, our approach at JMT is not to say that anything is better or worse than anything else. It's just simply to say, here's an option. And we are seeing a lot of our clients are taking advantage of this particular option. So, Brendan, if you could kindly advance to the next slide. This is a sample screenshot. And I think what's interesting, before I say anything about this screenshot, is another statistic that I saw. A major software company actually did some analysis, win-loss analysis. And the #1 reason cited for new clients was perceived user friendliness. And the #1 reason the same software companies' losses happened, perceived lack of user friendliness. Very consistent with other statistics that I've seen out there. Like, at the end of the day, people buy for emotional reasons. They don't really buy for rational reasons. And I know accountants out here all like to pretend like they do everything for rational reasons. But truth of the matter is, if you don't feel like it feels user friendly to you, you're just not going to want the tool. And so what you probably notice right away is this typically tends to be something that people say looks and feels sort of friendly and makes sense. You see right across the top some of the examples of the things I was talking about. This is a sample we built for a clinical organization that wanted to track those statistics: average number of patients, the cost of dollar raised, the cost per each clinician that they employ, and the revenue that each clinician brings in. So that would be right across the top, these non-financial metrics. And then you see some pie charts and things that look really interesting that are things like expenses by site. You also see on the bottom left an example of their built-in purchase orders and requisitions. This particular dashboard would be for somebody who perhaps is an approver on requisitions and purchases. And so right on their dashboard, they can have things like their queue of transactions that they need to approve. So that's an example, again, of some of the things that are available to you if you were to migrate to a tool like Intact. And then, Brendan, if you could move on to the next slide. Here's the puppy slide next. Oh, no, I forgot my puppy slide. But this is front and center from Intact's website. And this also comes back to something Brendan mentioned about NPT. All of these cloud tools, if you have any concerns about security or availability, you can usually go right to their website and find it, because they can't very well exist as a business if they aren't putting this number front and center for you. So this is just right from Intact's website this morning when I pulled this down, showing their average monthly availability. Intact guarantees 99.98% uptime. And you can see that this actually tracks it going back the last 12 months. And of course, there are accreditations for SSAE and other sorts for true security. So, excuse me. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to beat the security that you find with cloud tools, whether they be from Intact or NPT or anything else. Brendan, I believe that is all that I have, or is there actually maybe one more here? I don't know if you wanted to cover this one or if you wanted me to, Brendan.
Have at it.
Well, hopefully many of you on this call met us in person at the JMT Innovate Conference in 2017. That was at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. And we're very proud for everyone to hear that April 10th through 12th next year, concurrent with the 1 year birth date of that young gentleman that you saw earlier, we are having our Innovate Conference in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. At this conference, you can have interactive sessions with our consultants, whether on MIP, Intact, or any other tool. There are usually tracks where you can dive into some details and take a look at other tools that may be of interest to you. If you're thinking, for example, that maybe you do want to migrate to a tool like Intact, we'll have sessions on that. And if you want to talk to the people from NPT about putting your MIP system in their private cloud, you can do that as well. So it promises to be a great event. Last year we had an incredible keynote speaker, and truth be told, he's the one that told Brendan the statistic about putting a puppy or a kid picture in all of your PowerPoint decks. But we have great speakers that impart you with knowledge like that and others, not to mention just networking with other nonprofit professionals and frankly, just having a good time. Our clients always tell us that they find it to be an incredibly valuable event for many reasons. So we encourage all of you to put this on your calendar now and stay tuned as registration information becomes available as we get closer to that date.
Excellent. Thank you, Andy. At this time, I would like to open it up to our audience. If you have any questions, there is on the control panel of this GoToWebinar, toward probably the bottom, it says questions. You can ask your question there. I have one so far. Good question. We did not cover this. How long does it normally take to migrate to your MIP system to the cloud? So the answer is going to vary greatly upon which option you choose. So for the first three options, Abila Private Cloud, MIP Advanced, and NPT Private Cloud, I've seen it as quick as next day. We absolutely do not promise that. normally we are looking at, we tell folks 10 days. 10 business days from the date of sign on, and we'll have you up and running in one of those 3 options. Andy, 10 days, can you get somebody up and running on Intact in 10 days?
No, you certainly cannot. Intact is certainly, it is a complete migration to a different system. It's typically more like 3 to 4 months. So it is a much bigger undertaking for sure. Whereas with MIP's options, you're simply, in essence, just taking your database that resides on your current server and transferring it to either the NPT or the Abila private cloud, which is obviously not nearly the undertaking that it would be to change entirely to a new system.
3 to 4 months. So I guess in those 3 to 4 months after you've made this exciting jump to something like Intact, they would still be using MIP during that time. Is that correct?
That's correct. You would use, just like you would, even if you weren't on MIP, if you were on any tool, if you're buying a new software from JMT, we work very carefully with you to design your chart of accounts, get things ready, convert data, and then at some point we have a cutover date where we go live. So during that entire time and before the go live, you're using your existing system.
Excellent. Okay, I got another question here. I'm not going to fully be able to answer this. I knew it was going to come up. Pricing. Andy, do you want to take a stab first?
Well, Intact's pricing is dependent on probably the biggest variable that determines the pricing for Intact is the number of full users that you would have. And then, there are other things too. It's not quite as modular as MIP is, in that MIP has, you have your general ledger module, you have your AP, you have your AR modules. Intact kind of keeps it all mostly in one area that they call their core financials, and they base it on a number of users. There are a few add-on modules that do add cost. I don't want to be elusive with the question, so I will just say that it's very difficult to answer that question if I don't know more about your particular organization, how many users you have. But I would be happy, if anyone wants to talk about Intact, I would be very happy to take a call. Just call our 888 number and ask for extension 1013. And in about 3 minutes of questions, I could probably at least give you a ballpark. And again, I'm a big believer in giving that, by the way, up front. There's no sense in getting anybody excited about something if it's not within their budget, and I would much rather get that part out of the way early. So I think it's best to probably take that as an individual question. Brendan, if you want to answer the question about if someone's migrating their MIP system to the private cloud.
Yep, so mine is a little more cut and dry, but you're still going to get a non-answer from me. It is similar to Intact, priced primarily based on the number of users you have. So this is a subscription, in essence, to get your users in your MIP system into the cloud. It ranges, all 3 of my options range in the starting price point of between $50 and $95 per user per month. The more you add, the more you save. The more additional modules, things like Microi and Drill Point and HR and things like that, the more of that you have, that drives up the price a little more. But it similar to what Andy said, if you give me a call or send me an email, I can absolutely get you a very accurate quote based on exactly what you have.
And I want to add to that we believe very strongly nobody buys anything if it isn't worth more than they paid for it. And we will help you build the business case for any of these investments. And we have, for example, I have a spreadsheet tool that I sometimes use that can help you to brainstorm what are your IT infrastructure costs, for example, that you currently have. Because if you just look at the cost of hosting or the cost of a tool like Intact versus what you're paying now, then probably just staying with your current MIP and paying your small maintenance fee every year is going to look like the most economical thing to do. However, you have to take into account those other things, whether they be the cost of servers, IT time. that's spent on upgrades and all those other things. So we have some things that we can do to help you as you build that business case with your internal decision makers.
Awesome. Looks like my last question here is, let me decipher this. Is there a contract? I assume that you mean for the length of term that you opt to put your MIP system into the cloud. This is going to vary greatly between my answer and Andy's answer. I'll start here first. There is not a length of term contract. There is, however, a length of term price guarantee for all three of my options that I discussed, and all three options require at least 30 days notice to cancel. But there is no hard and fast contract. But again, a different mindset and a different way of thinking about technology and applications will bring you to Andy's answer to that. Andy, you there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry,
Andy,
I didn't realize that you were adding another question.
Oh, the question was, is there a contract?
Certainly, yes, there is a contract for Intact. As a software as a service, the contract is an annual contract, and Intact looks at it very much like they have to earn your business again on an annual basis. So the whole idea behind software as a service is just that they are serving you and providing the service of having access to this tool, and you always have the option of not re-upping your contract. And so that's part of the pressure they put on themselves to make sure they're continuing to give excellence to all of their clients so that you will renew on an annual basis.
Excellent. That is the last of the questions. Wait, is that the last of the questions?
Looks like another one about the migration. Can the migration be reversed back to on-premise at any time? If you are moving your MIP system to the private cloud, and you decide later that no, I'd rather just go back to having the on-premise version. At least with the Brendan, you can answer this about the the Abila private cloud, but I know that with NPT you can get your database back and have it on-prem again anytime you want to. Is that also true with Abila private cloud?
It is. I can think of one scenario where that did happen. Actually, two. The client went to migrate to MIP Advanced, and after they signed on the dotted line and started the implementation, they realized that their bandwidth to run MIP Advanced, while not with a crazy bandwidth requirement, it was just that they're out in the middle of nowhere. It was not sustainable, not enough for them to adequately run MIP Advanced, so they ended up having to abandon the project right after it got its feet off the ground. And no, it is not difficult at all to migrate back. It does happen. Okay, so Andy, your phone number, for those of you who want to call him and pick his brain about Intact, is 314-735-0753. His email address is up there as well. My email address is there also. And my phone number is 845-363-6884. And I thank you all for your time today. I hope you all learned a bunch about cloud options. And of course, if you're anything like me, you'll have 14 questions as soon as we hang up here. So please do not hesitate to reach out, and we look forward to talking to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.